So in this segment, we're going to be talking about what's going on, kind of the beef between France and the French fishermen and Jersey, and the kind of fallout from the situation. So it looks like the French fishermen have gone home. It's not clear whether they're going to return tomorrow or if the situation has been resolved. So we're going to keep an eye on this story because we don't want it to let it swim away from us. That's terrible. I'm leaving that in. Anyways, so a protest over post-Brexit rights by fishermen at Jersey's main port has ended following talks that aimed to resolve the row. So there's two different versions of what happened here with regards to the discussions. Some people are saying that it has been resolved, and some people are saying it hasn't. As I mentioned, this is in this article. What this is over, it's mainly fishing rights and licenses. So Jersey are meant to give out fishing rights. Fishing licenses to French and EU fishermen who fish in that area, and have done for in previous years. They were told that there wouldn't be many issues, but the Jersey government's been very slow in handing out licenses and has changed the rules around them. The British government has thrown the Jersey kind of government under the bus by saying that it's up to Jersey to hand out these licenses, and therefore a lot of pressure has been put on Jersey to actually do what they were meant to have done by the looks of things. It very much looks like Jersey and the British government is in the wrong, but if that's not the case, then I'll do a correction video, but for the moment that's what it looks like. So about 60 boats protested at St Helier, and two Royal Navy ships and two French vessels were there, sent to the area. So you had two boats from the French Navy. French fishermen say their rights are unfairly restricted by licenses issued by the Channel Islands new system. That's something we'll talk about a bit later in the video. Jersey's External Relations Minister Ian Gorst said discussions were positive. However, a spokesperson for the fishermen from France's Normandy region suggested that no progress had been made during the talks. We're either getting deeper into deadlock, Hugo Lahoubi told Reuters news agency. Either this gets resolved or retaliatory measures are taken. So that could come in the form of maybe a boycott by the French and sort of EU consumers, or potential sanctions depending on what steps the EU takes and how far in the wrong the UK are on this, which we'll talk about towards the end of the video. So in Brussels, a European Commission spokeswoman said additional conditions attached to the new licenses were in breach of the Brexit trade deal. So that's where you could get potential sanctions if it's found that Britain is in breach of the trade deal. Meanwhile, number 10, in a call with Jersey officials, told Prime Minister Boris Johnson given his unequivocal support for the island and confirmed that two Royal Navy vessels will remain in place to monitor the situation. So I don't understand why he's not contacting the French and the French fisheries minister and whatever to try and resolve the issue. Instead, he's telling Jersey to keep it up, basically. Definitely the wrong thing to do to escalate tensions. So Jersey officials are meeting French fishermen who have been protesting, something we've just spoken about. Number 10 said it sent in two Royal Navy boats. France has threatened to cut off electricity to Jersey, the largest Channel island and a Crown dependency. Crown dependencies are not part of the UK but are defended and represented internationally by the UK government, and also known for notoriously for tax evasion reasons. Let's not forget that. The boats are protesting against new fishing rules introduced last week by the Jersey government under the UK-EU trade and cooperation deal, which requires French boats to show they have a history of fishing in the Jersey waters, but it's claimed additional requirements were added without notice, and that's the breach there. It'll show you that Jersey is obviously here. You would have French fishermen from these areas going in towards those kind of waters, and these are waters that they would have been fishing in for a long time, especially under the common fisheries policy. It's really important that we are able to work together with those fishermen to help them provide the necessary evidence so that, if required, their licenses can be amended, Senator Ian Gorst, Jersey's External Relations Minister, has said. But the thing is, it looks like Jersey are the ones causing the problems here. This person goes on to say, as I've said, it's important that we respond to threats, but the answer to this solution is to continue to talk and diplomacy. And if there are a genuine issue with licenses, as it looks to be the case, then hurry up and talk to your boys to resolve it. Jersey fisherman Loic Farnhan said of his French counterpart, "They are professional fishermen, the same as we are. We'd like to keep it all amicable so that we can have access to the markets and carry on earning a living in our waters." Not to mention the fact that 90% of Jersey's fish exports actually go to the EU. So if Jersey do mess around, then they're going to be in trouble. We've got a bit more down here. So you've got Stephanie Yon Courtine, is a member of the EU's Fisheries Committee, saying that all retaliatory measures will be explored, and that the threat to cut off electricity is a very much a fake threat, because they're not going to follow through with it. So a very stupid thing for any of the French kind of MPs or whatever you guys have over there to say that we're going to cut off electricity and then be like, we're not actually really going to do that, because you just look a bit stupid, to be honest. A statement from the Jersey government read, "Diplomatic efforts will continue to resolve the outstanding issues relating to fishing licenses and to de-escalate the situation. But if you're adding new rules that weren't covered in the TCA, the TCA, then you're the one causing the problem, pal." And I've seen like a lot of the issues are that the people of Jersey are angry that French fishermen can fish in the waters around Jersey, but fishermen from Jersey can only fish in those same waters. They can't really go out too far. But that's a problem with the British government, not with the French fishermen. You go on to say Dmitry Rogov, head of the fisheries for the Normandy region, said boats would not try and block St. Helier and would return to France in the afternoon, the AFP reported. So we don't know how much has been resolved, but they said they would go home anyways, regardless of the situation. So we'll see if they keep coming out with these blockades in the next few days. That's the real answer. Labour Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey said the threats were completely unreasonable and urged the UK government to get round the table with French colleagues. But sometimes direct action is the only way you actually get people to listen. If these French fishermen just protested at home, the only ones who would listen are French parliamentarians. But by going out and by causing a stink, you get people around the table. That's the thing that the French do really well, and that British people don't. French fishermen have complained about being prevented from operating in British waters because of the difficulties in obtaining licenses. Under the agreement, French boat operators must show a history of fishing in the area to receive a license, which I don't know how they would prove that, but I don't think it would be super difficult. But it has been claimed additional requirements were added without notice. Jersey has the sole power to issue the licenses, and of last week, all fishing boats were required to have licenses to operate there. On Friday, the government had granted 41 permits to the French fishing vessels that are equipped with technology that allows them to be located. I mean, is that part of the TCA that these boats have to have some sort of device that they can be tracked? I don't know. If anyone does know, let me know in the comments. But the French government claimed that the list of approved ships came with further demands that were not arranged or discussed, which meant that they were not notified about it. So this is the key problem here. This is Chrislemencio, I hope that's pronounced that vaguely correctly, saying that the criteria that they were given was to prove that they had fished in Jersey for waters for 10 days. Nothing about what species were caught, nothing about if you fish for 20 days or 30 days or having to prove it. So all you have to do is prove that you fished there on occasion, I think 10 days out of a year or something like that. But Don Thompson said that they've had since the 1st of January to comply with the new rules, and perhaps some of the boats that didn't qualify were a bit put out. So basically that they're just frustrated they didn't qualify. The thing is though, that's a dumb statement to make, because if it's the case that they just need to prove that they were fishing in that area for 10 days in a year or whatever, then that's very easy to qualify. Unless you're saying that these are new French fishermen that have come out of nowhere and have no history of fishing in the area, then you might have a point. But this Don Thompson guy is one of the idiots that's going to help escalate the situation. So we're done with this article. I don't want to cover this stuff just yet. So the EU stance on this is the European Commission have told Britain that the conditions imposed on licences for French fishing vessels in Jersey's territorial waters breach the terms of the EU-UK trade deal, a Brussels spokesperson has said. And this is where it will go to a dispute thing, and if no one listens to the dispute panel, then we're talking sanctions here. We're talking probably tariffs. EU probably putting tariffs on British products. Speaking at a press conference in Brussels, Commission spokesperson Vivian Loonella said on the 30th of April the Commission was notified by the UK authorities of granting 41 licences to EU vessels fishing in Jersey's territorial waters from the 1st of May. But obviously there are a lot more fishing vessels than just 41. But there were additional conditions set to those licences. We have following the receiving of this indicated to the UK that we see the provisions of the trade agreement that we recently agreed have not been met there and have not been respected. We've only signed this thing like about 4 months ago, so it's very strange that it's very quick that the UK government has actually breached this agreement. Under the terms of the agreement by Boris Johnson on Christmas Eve, any new conditions limiting EU fishing activities in the UK waters must be based on scientific rationale and not be discriminatory between the UK and European boats and be notified in advance. So what the EU have said is it's got to be based on science, which I'm going to cover in a separate video, the UK breaching agreements and doing overfishing in certain areas. And it can't be done discriminatory. So if EU fishermen are told that you can't fish in this area because of overfishing reasons, then the same has to go for British fishing vessels. That's what I think the EU stance is here. Based on what we have indicated, that until we have received further justification from the UK authorities, we consider these new conditions should not apply. We are continuing our discussions with the UK and we are calling for calm in this situation. We are doing as foreseen in the agreement, as well as keeping in mind the best interest for our fishing community. Full compliance with the TCA is essential in this process. And the thing is, again, if we do breach these rules, then we could be in trouble here. And it does look like we are in breach. Commission spokesperson Daniel Furry said that Brussels was engaging in good faith with the UK over the situation. I just wish the UK would do the same. The deal requires both parties to a dispute to engage constructively over any disagreement. So instead of taking unilateral action like the UK have once again, by the looks of things, we're meant to go to a dispute panel first rather than striking first and then talking later, the American way. If disagreement persists, the TCA allows for the complaining party, which would be the UK in this case, to request the establishment of an arbitration tribunal. Again, I don't really know how long any of these kind of tribunals will take. In the case of either side failing to comply with the tribunal's ruling, the other party has the right to suspend its other obligations under the treaty in a proportional way. So maybe they'll put sanctions on British exports of fish. That would probably include Jersey as well. It is understood that this could include the introduction of tariffs on goods related to the dispute, so fishing most likely. We've got a bit more here. So this is kind of an interview they did with some fishermen in Jersey. So Jersey's largest oyster producer says he stands side by side with the aggrieved French fishermen and will even support a potential and peaceful blockade if it goes ahead. So Chrislemencio, they'll probably argue that he's some French dude, that's why his view won't count, but he's saying that these new kind of rules, these are genuinely new rules, are insulting and discriminatory. Him saying it's taking away the livelihood of fishermen in the area, and that it's an absolute disgrace. It is about protecting people's historic rights, livelihoods and friendships that have been forged over years. The government went out of their way out there and told them, don't worry. This is the British government saying, as long as you have fished there 10 days in 2017, 2018 or 2019, you will be given a license and can carry on. But on Friday afternoon, the licenses were issued with all these conditions attached. It came to Monday morning and some could not go fishing. So these are very, very much new rules. So the argument that they've had since the 1st of January to apply for this stuff is wrong, because they didn't know about these new rules, because by the looks of things, these new rules hadn't actually existed. This person goes on to say, I know one fisherman who has been told he can fish for 11 days between now and the 13th of April next year. So that's not going to work. You can't create a livelihood on that. You can't live off that sort of money that you would only get for working for 11 days in that area in the year. There is another in Carteret who fishes for scallops, whelks and lobsters, who has been only given a license for whelks, which is again very strange. And I think whelks out of the three of those would have the lowest value as well. I might be wrong on that. He has now got 720 lobster pots that are going to have to be taken away because he can't fish for lobsters. When you see things like that happening, you can understand why these people get upset. And absolutely, if you fished in these areas, for most of your life, and you fish these specific types of, fish, you can imagine you'd get very angry if they told you suddenly can't do this, despite the fact that you had been told otherwise by the relative, powers that be. Mr. Lemontier said he could not personally understand why the conditions have been imposed and who has decided they should be implemented. It's the Jersey government backed by the British. He added, "Who invented this criteria? There's no rhyme or reason to it. It has only been attached to French vessels, not Jersey. And under the rules of the Trade and Economic Cooperation Agreement, this learned man, both sides have got to be treated fairly." So this is a guy who's most likely looked over the specific rules because it is his livelihood at the end of the day. "The government has left us wide open to facing international disaster. I have now been told by the French not to land any shellfish or fish in French ports, and that no commercial vessels will be allowed either." So what you're seeing here is the French saying, look, don't bother coming here to France with your fish because we ain't going to buy it, pal. We ain't going to buy it. And this is this man's livelihood going down because he fishes oysters, something that's typically not consumed by the British. It's consumed more by, I think, the Spanish and the French and probably other EU nations. So this is a very, very, very stupid thing for the British government to decide to do. What a lot of people do not realise, as I've mentioned before, is that 90% of what is caught wild and farmed locally in Jersey is then exported to mainland Europe. So this is 90% of the export from Jersey. And so if Jersey, the people within Jersey keep this up, they're going to lose their export market. Yeah, the French fishermen will lose out. Yes, they'll be very angry about it. But what you're doing is creating a situation where these fishermen in Jersey will lose their entire export market. 90% of their export market gone. There is one merchant who has brought lots of produce off the Jersey fishermen, so this is typically an exporter who will buy the produce and then sell it on in France. Has been planning to go to France either today or tomorrow. She has already paid them, but is in tanks now, and these fish could eventually die in these tanks, which makes them worthless. She cannot ship out to Europe. She has had to tell fishermen not to go fishing. So I wonder how many of these fishermen have been told not to bother going out today because of this situation. I have never known a situation with France that is so bad. Thank Boris Johnson, mate. However, Don Thompson, this idiot Don Thompson, which we're going to have to talk about, said that the Jersey government had been quite generous in licensing. Absolute fraud, this man is smug git. He said that you have signed up to the post-Brexit cooperation agreement, which states that Jersey must recognise the extent of previous fishing in our water. The restrictions on the new licences cover what the French were already doing in our waters. They are only preventing them from expanding their fishing efforts. Mate, if it's the case that, as mentioned earlier, this one of the French fishermen who had fished whelks, lobster and scallops cannot get two of those, he is not being... his operation is not stopped from being expanding. His operation has been shrunk because of the new licensing rules. So this is not expansion. This is about people keeping what they already had before. So this guy, Tom Johnson, absolute fraud. Who's a point that's being missed is that Jersey boats do not have the licenses to fish in French waters. This is the reason I believe that Jersey have done this. It's because the fishermen from Jersey cannot go out of their local waters, but the French fishermen can. But that was down to Boris Johnson. I think under the common fisheries policy, you probably would have been allowed to go out further. But in this case, you can't because of Boris Johnson. So you should aim your anger at the right person and not be a fraud, because you're going to lose 90% of your export market. Tom Johnson, you massive fool. We are restricted to our own territorial waters while they can use us if any restrictions are placed on their own. So this guy is just so dumb. Mr. Thompson also highlighted how the approved 41 fish vessels have been given a license for free and urged the Jersey government not to give in to the French. Our boats would be charged £250,000 if they were going to do something similar. Well, again, you have to blame the British government because they agreed to this. You absolute moron. Our advice to ministers is that they should not capitulate. This man lives in World War II, I'm afraid. This man lives in the Britain was a major superpower kind of era. So we go on to, the other stuff around this, which is that this is from Channel 5. This is Jeremy Vine doing some weird stuff. Someone fired a musket, apparently, a member of the Jersey Militia's reenactment group, a guy who's never probably seen real war in his life and probably never will because he's too scared to go to the front lines, decided to fire a musket at the French fishing boats. You see here, he's loading it up, putting the metal thing in to get the bullet in. He's decided to fire. Well, it's not really at the French fishing boats, it's more towards them, but sick one, bro. Sick one. We go to this stuff here, which is about, a British person within government saying that at least the Nazis kept the lights on, referring to a potential power cut by the French, and then comparing the French to the Nazis and saying that potentially they are worse. At least when the Germans invaded, they kept the lights on, a government source said, referring to the 5-year occupation during World War II. Like, who... These people are actively looking for a fight. Meanwhile, government sources have accused the French of sinking lower than the island's Nazi occupiers in World War II. A source told the Telegraph, at least when the Germans invaded, they kept the lights on. These people are looking for a fight. You know, this is more about the negotiations and stuff. So, you know, in conclusion, what can we see from this? You know, someone within the government of Jersey decided to change the rules around French fishing license. And when the French protest, they go out and protest. You know, they don't do this airy-fairy stuff just with banners and Twitter hashtags. They will go outside and do direct action. And that's what we're seeing here. A peaceful blockade, nonetheless, but a blockade of the ports around Jersey. You know, they managed to get someone from the Jersey government, by the looks of things, to the negotiating table very quickly. It took a matter of hours in order to do this. You could imagine if they protested at home, not much would have happened. We've already seen French blockades recently in one of the ports around France, and you know, this blockade that they've done here has gotten far quicker results. And you can argue this is bully boy tactics. It is, but sometimes people only listen to bullies. Sometimes people only just understand fists. That's it. They understand punches and kicks. They don't understand, you know, you saying, look, you can't do this. This is wrong. They don't understand communication. All they understand is force, which seems to be the case for the Jersey government. But yeah, you know, if Jersey do not drop these new rules around licenses, they could be in trouble. You know, their export market for the fishermen could get dropped, and 90%, you know, if the French are saying, don't bother bringing your catches here, where are the fishermen of Jersey going to sell their fish to? You know, this is ridiculous. This entire situation has been manufactured by the Jersey government, has been escalated by the British government, but also to an extent the French government, you know, threatening to cut power, like, get out of here. You know, you're not going to de-escalate like that. You have to, if it's the case that, you know, you wanted to, you know, ramp up tensions and you want to say, you want to make a statement, what you should have said is, right, fine, we're going to boycott British fish, we're going to put sanctions on you, tariffs on your fish, and we're going to tell, you know, members of the French public not to buy your products. A full-on boycott, because why would we buy products from people who are damaging the livelihoods of our own fishermen? Fine, you want to play like that, we'll put tariffs on you. We don't care. You're the ones in the wrong. You're the ones breaking the rules, and if you're not careful, you might face tariffs on more and more products. So I would watch yourselves. That's what I would have said if I was the French government. I would have probably done it in a French accent or something. But yeah, I don't want to mock the French too much, because in this case, I don't really blame them too much. These are people's livelihoods at the end of the day. This is the British government and the Jersey government deciding to mess around and find out, well, certain groups you don't mess with, because when they protest, they come out loud. You know, they come out, you know, causing problems, because that's what they aim to do with a protest. They aim for results. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.